Welcome to the Daily Dawg podcast for Monday, September 29th. This is week 6 of the 2025 season, and while it is Kentucky week, we are in our Alabama recap. We did not do a podcast immediately following the game. Spent a lot of time both trying to ignore the game and thinking about the game last night, and like all of you, I'm sure that I've been through all the different emotions of anger, frustration, disappointment, and I actually stayed up half the night after trying not to think too much about it. I had to watch a movie or something just to try and get my mind off of it. And I did. I watched a movie, and then it's in the wee hours of the night, and I thought, well, I can go to bed. And as soon as I turn off the movie and try to go to bed, I'm right back to thinking about the game. And a lot of what I was going to say here, but really that's just how I think about the game. So what I was going to say here was not any special preparation. I mean, it's deeply disappointing, right? I mean, for a lot of reasons. And first and foremost, obviously, the problem that we have with Alabama. You know, now everybody's saying, oh my gosh, Kirby can't beat Alabama. Georgia can't beat Alabama. What's going on? I'm at least pleased to know that and acknowledge that the various media people and folks out there kind of keep saying, a team the caliber of Georgia, a team that's accomplished what Georgia has, that basically can beat everybody everywhere in any game, for some reason somehow can't beat Alabama in these games. And so I appreciate they're at least acknowledging that. Again, we're not sort of slipping back into that narrative, even though this may give you a PTSD type feeling. We're not slipping back into the narrative of, oh, Georgia and the can't get over the big one. We can't get over this game. Obviously, this game hasn't kept us from multiple SEC championships, multiple national championships, and even last year, just like I talked about. Look, we lost this game same week, same time last year by a one-score game. Last year it was on the road, and it was a instant classic epic shootout. This game was a tense struggle and a close game all the way through, and there was a lot of tension, but I don't know that it was a great game or that the nation was thrilled to watch this game quite like they were last year's game, even though it was a close game and came down right to the end. So I think there was excitement and drama, but, obviously, if you're impartial, I guess it made for quite a narrative, and Georgia, the team that's on top, arguably the best team in the SEC, or at least the team with the best standing in the SEC coming into this week, now falls down, takes the loss. Alabama had already taken a loss, but not in conference yet, steps up, moves up ahead. Other things happen throughout the conference, and we're just not going to talk about a lot of that today. I mean, LSU fell down, Ole Miss went up, Vandy continues to be undefeated. So there's a lot of up and down. Texas A&M continues to be undefeated. Auburn continues to fall down again. So, that's what's going to happen. Every week, teams are going to play each other, and there's going to be some up and down. And we knew coming into this week, this was going to be a big week, not just for Georgia, but for everybody else. But let's just focus on the reaction to what happened here. Going back to disappointment, I talked to one or two folks directly. We had some direct messaging and chatting, and please jump in and join in on the chat. That's available through Substack that we're doing during the games. Would love to hear from more of you. We do them every game day. The chat's out there. You can leave a message or a chat. If you get to the podcast from Substack, there's a place where you can join the chat or click on that. It's free. It does it does show some sort of you have to join the chat, but it's free to anybody who subscribes. And of course, subscribing is free at the moment to the Daily Dawg on Substack. So anyway, I chatted with some direct messages and a few people here and there after the game, and a little bit during the game, and a little bit on the Substack chat. And I don't remember how many people might have heard this, but I guess here's where I came down to, and I thought about it ever since the game ended. And I think I'm reminded of, I'm also a movie buff. I think I've mentioned that before. So a lot of times I might drift towards movie references. And so I keep thinking of the line from Troy when Achilles, played by Brad Pitt, is talking to I can't remember what her name is. But anyway, the character played by Rose Byrne, and she had been one of the daughters of the leaders of Troy, and so she's a priestess in the temple of Apollo when Achilles and his the Greeks overwhelm the beach and take the beach, and she ends up getting captured, and she's sort of Achilles' prize in the capture. And anyway, they get to know each other and they build some sort of a bond in the movie. But the funny part, or the part that was a great line, and if you've seen the movie, you might remember this. So they get to talking after one of the battles, and she's the prisoner in there, and he goes on to say several things and show that he has depth and intelligence. And she looks at him and she says, "I thought you were a dumb brute. I could have forgiven a dumb brute." And I think that maybe this is a long-winded way to get to the story, but that's sort of how I feel is, look, we hang our emotions and our feelings for 3-4 months of the college football season on a bunch of 18 to 22-year-old guys and the coaches that coach them. And there's a lot of reasons for that. I felt like I was inspired to want to write some essays or thoughts. I didn't get them out. I just kind of tried to walk away some today and last night. Like I said, watch a movie, distract myself, do anything I could to kind of get the sick feeling out of my thinking after I'd sort of absorbed everything that happened. But I keep coming back to this idea that part of what is so aggravating or frustrating was if we just lined up thinking we have a team that could win the championship, this idea we've been talking about, measuring ourselves, looking at all the other teams out there, where are we going to be, how are we heading towards the playoff. If we came into this game and we think we've got a championship team and we think that we're better, or a championship contender, capable team, and we think maybe we're better. I mean, in the end, I came down on the prediction side. I said, I think we'll win this game. Thought it'd be close, but I thought we'd win it. So I think we're better than Alabama, is my thinking coming into this game. I may still think that after the game, but let's leave that aside for the moment. So nonetheless, I come in thinking I'm better. We think we're a better team, right? And this has happened before. Sometimes you think you have a good enough team. And many of the Mark Richt years, and even early Kirby Smart years, before you knew we could win the national championship, before you knew we could be the most dominant team in college football for 29 straight games, you had this sort of feeling like, I think we're good enough. I think we can, right? And so you come in with that belief. And there were times, and I've referenced the SEC championship game against the 2009 LSU team a couple times recently. In that game, we had a good team. They had a great team, right? And we saw it wasn't just us. They just beat down people on the way to the national championship. That was a great team. Didn't stick together. Wasn't a great 10-year run for LSU. They'd end up firing their coach within a couple of years and moving on, and up and down world that is LSU football. But the point is, that was a great team. Our team was really good, just not as great. So we lost that game 38-10, and I've referenced the play before. Early, I think it was in the first half, where it looks like for all the world we're going to sack Joe Burrow. The game's still competitive, maybe 3-3, 7-3, something like that. For all the world, it looks like we're going to sack Joe Burrow deep in their own territory. Maybe we get the ball and maybe we can go out to a lead or stretch out, whatever. Maybe stretch out a lead. I don't remember the exact circumstance. All I know is it's early and close. He scrambles around, spins away. We don't quite sack him. We get a hand on him, but we don't bring him down. He launches a ball downfield. It's for a huge first down. They go on to score, and that's like the first of 30 consecutive points or something in the way en route to the 38-10 beatdown. Well, we were wrong. We were excited. We thought we maybe could win. We came into that game highly ranked. We had a record, and we'd had a season that said we should be competitive in this game. We weren't. They were just a much better team. And they went on to prove that in the subsequent games beyond that as they went to the national championship. We went out, disappointingly lost our bowl game. Nonetheless, the point is there's sometimes where you just tip your cap and you just say, look, that was a much better team. They played better than us. This game is so aggravating because I don't think it's a much better team. Maybe they are a better team. I'm not sure. I'm still working on the idea of saying, is Alabama a better team than us? Are we more flawed? Or are they more flawed? I said that and we've been talking about there are no juggernauts. There are no perfect teams. There's no teams that look like vintage Alabama, vintage Georgia of just a few years ago. We're not going to see that again. You keep seeing it over and over again. Everybody's saying in this era, we're not going to see it again. Not in the foreseeable future. Look, that's the way arms races go, right? Is that people always keep looking for a way to game the system and do the best. And when you have people like Kirby and Nick Saban, they figured out how to overwhelm the odds in their favor and just take most of the risk out of the equation so that winning was inevitable most of the time, even against top ranked teams. Well, we don't think we're going to see that anymore. The game is devolved or evolved, whichever way you want to go. And with the playoff system, we've introduced much more of a pro style look around the league. And with people being paid, it's much more like pro sports, where it's very hard to amass overwhelming talent on one team while other teams are not any good. You see teams in all professional leagues that are terrible, and you see teams that are really good. And teams like Kansas City in the pros can go on a run where they win several Super Bowls out of several years. Or, of course, the Tom Brady-led Patriots and the massive number of Super Bowls, much like Nick Saban's run at Alabama. That seems unusual in the era of parity in pro sports, and it probably will remain unusual in the college sports. But I'm trying to get to this idea of saying, look, we've said it all along, we've been saying it all this season, we don't think there's going to be any dominant team. So Alabama's a flawed team, Ohio State's a flawed team, Texas is a flawed team. I'm not really sure about Oregon. They may not be that flawed. Miami may not be that flawed. They're not perfect. Miami and Oregon, I haven't watched them enough to really know, but so far the numbers, the stats, the way they've played seems to show that while they have possible weaknesses, and they certainly can get beat. Oregon ended up in a multi-overtime game and pulled it out on the road against Penn State. They deserve all the credit for that. But just like us last game against Tennessee, we could have lost that game just as easily as we won. Well, Oregon could have lost it just as easily as they won. They did end up winning it. So when teams don't have that overwhelming talent, and you have pretty good coaching and everything else is basically equal, then you expect these games to be close. And look, this game with Alabama was close. It ended up exactly like it was purported to be on paper. The line ended up being 2.5 points. Alabama won by 3. So it was Georgia by 2.5 points. Alabama won by 3. The line neutralized the game. It was a 50-50 game with Vegas odds against it. That's exactly what they want, so that they can split the money in both directions. The over-under was close. It was a little bit under their expectations. You had 45 points scored in the game against a 53-point over-under. That didn't work out quite as well. People who bet the under might have come out ahead on that one. So, and I don't know where the money went, so to speak, on that. And again, I don't follow that carefully, but I think it's interesting, as I've explained before, because they're so good at this. It does give us a lot when we're just really interested, not in the gambling side of it, but the prediction side of it, to see what they see in the numbers. So this game came out, and a lot of people thought this would be close. I think in the end, roughly 60% of all the media and talking heads and people out there, I think, picked Georgia and thought, this is a flawed Alabama team. Georgia showed grit and toughness. They're playing at home. And let me just go off for a second and say kudos to the University of Georgia. Kudos to you guys, the fans, anybody who was there and a part of it. That was an amazing scene. That was the most electric atmosphere. And the university just keeps doing its part to just add to this experience, right? The little wristbands, the flyover, just taking advantage of the nighttime game, just really great effort by the university and really great effort by the fans, and disappointing that we couldn't get more out of it. But it probably on some level led to some advantage. It's hard to say, but it was a great representation of the University of Georgia, and certainly one that I think we all could be proud of. It looked like one of the biggest sporting events this year anywhere for any reason. I mean, that game started off with the way it all looked on TV as it was being put together. It looked like a Super Bowl or something. So again, kudos to Jerry Moorhead, Josh Brooks, athletic director, president of the university, all the people involved who brought that together. Congratulations. That was epic. And look, we won that part of the game for sure. Ole Miss is famous for saying, being so proud of their parties in the Grove that, they say, well, look, we may not win the game, but we've never lost a party. Well, we didn't lose we didn't lose the presentation. We represented our university, and our fans represented us at the highest level. And if the team had represented us the same way, then it would have been a night most people who were any part of it, TV or in person, would never have forgotten. But the team, the coaching, I think everything let us down. And that's what my horrific disappointment is, right? Is, I guess, again, what I'm trying to say is, look, you go out there and you play well, you play your best, even if it looks like you line up and you're mano-a-mano, as I keep saying, man on man, you know, our guy, you play the guy in front of you and you do your job. And if that happened and they were just better and they just beat us, then you tip your hat and you say, look, we tried hard. We put in our best game plan. We played smart. We played tough. They played smarter. They played tougher, and they won. You'd say, well, isn't that what happened? Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to be the sour milk guy, or the guy who tries to, you know, say, I mean, I guess it makes it seem like I'm thinking it's just all about Georgia, but it feels like it was, okay? I was prepared. Now, if you were following with me on the chat in the first half, I wasn't even mad. I was really just almost sad and disappointed, because what I saw in the first half made me feel like especially what I had came down on my final predictions in the last two podcasts leading into the game, that I was just wrong, just utterly wrong. I said I thought we would see stars emerge. I thought the pass rush that hadn't quite been there against Tennessee would step up, and I think that a couple guys would come out of this game. I didn't think that I wasn't expecting us to have 8 sacks in the game and just destroy Alabama's offense. I told you I thought it'd be a close game. I thought we might pull it out like 28-24. And you know, the simple answer is we should have. The final score of this game should have been 28-24. It was there, and we should have had it. And that's another theme I'll tell you, is how disappointingly right I was about a lot of the predictions I made, but how they just kind of flip-flopped on us. But that's what's so aggravating, is that I know that we're a flawed team, but I know there are no great teams. And so we don't have to win. And we talked about this too. We didn't have to win this game to make the playoff. I mean, I'm going to be optimistic. I'm wearing if you can see me, and I ever get this video posted where you get to see it, I'm wearing my playoff bound shirt from last year, which admittedly was just, I got it this year as a $10 giveaway shirt, at the bookstore, because they were blowing them out, because who really needed and wanted, a t-shirt that just says playoff, but they're going to produce them anyway. Right. So anyway, that's what's so aggravating. This game was there for the taking. We're a flawed team. So is Alabama. Alabama did some really good things in this game for periods of time. We did some really good things in this game for periods of time. But in the end, how much the game hung in the balance with it there for us to take, and we just couldn't do it. How many times individual mistakes or choices, or what I'm going to call coaching decisions too, also just cost us this game, is just aggravating beyond measure. And so it's hard to get the taste of this out of your mouth. It's hard to move past this one, not just because it's Alabama and now it's 10 of 11 instead of 9 of 10. Not just because, we're falling out of the top 10 and now we're going to be, fighting for respect, trying to get our way back into the situation. Not just because now we have less margin for error with a lot of good teams and we look more beatable. I mean, that's how the whole thing goes, right? You win this game, you've already beaten Tennessee, you've already beaten Alabama, you look less beatable even if the games are close. And so you have all this confidence, even though you still got to play Ole Miss, you still got to play Texas, you still got to play Georgia Tech. And like we talked about, Georgia Tech's not a league game, but now we got a loss, right? So if we can't afford to lose another league game and then lose to Georgia Tech, 9-3 is probably 9-3 is not comfortable. It's not a guarantee that you couldn't get in to the playoff, and especially depending on what those losses and wins are, right? Your resume is going to make a big difference. And we have enough top 25, top 15 games on our schedule, depending on the combination of wins and losses, that our resume may still be adequate at 9-3. But do we really want to get into that argument? And then how excited are you? I keep talking about how the teams in the bottom of this playoff bracket the last couple of years, a lot of these teams were essentially charity teams. I've even called recently in the podcast Tennessee's placement into the playoff last year as a 10-2 team a charity game, because it is, compared to that team was just like Tennessee teams before that would not have been a part of a 4-team playoff. It was not really a serious national championship contender. They didn't look like it when they came to Sanford Stadium and played us last year, and they didn't look like it when they went on the road and played Ohio State and got destroyed. And so there's nothing to think, oh, well, that was just a bad matchup, or Ohio State was just really good that day. Maybe a different matchup, and they might have, gone to the championship game and won. No, that Tennessee team was a good team, a solid top 25 team, maybe a solid top 15 team. I mean, they finished number 9, but I'll say they're a solid top 15 team. But again, there's a big difference in what we've thought of through all of our time as fans in college football about what a championship team is or a championship contender versus just a top 15 team. A number 15 team is historically not a championship contender. And now we've created a playoff system where possibly a team that's hovering around number 15, depending on where things are, could be a playoff team. So technically, they're a championship contender because they're going to get in the playoff. But the reality, just like we saw last year, those teams in that position mostly were not competitive in the games they played. They got bounced from the playoff. So I'm calling it charity because you get to say you were in the playoff. But throughout the history of college football, you never would have really had a serious run, okay? So that's what I think was disappointing is I'm looking at our team and I'm saying, oh my gosh, we're actually that team. I thought we were going to rise. I thought we had the talent. I thought we were going to grow into as the season goes. We survived some of these early games, survive in advance. And I think we could build an elite record or elite resume. And I think we have as good a chance as anybody based on talent and overall capability and a schedule to grow on that maybe, by the end of the year, we're legitimately looking at this team with excitement, getting into the playoff and making a run and having a shot at the national championship. And I saw all that being just not true in the first half of this game because what I saw was a team that against an elite or at least a partially elite offense could not get off the field, could not get any pass rush. And so for the second game in a row in the first half, just like against Tennessee, we're getting zero pass rush and we're getting gashed. And I'm hearing David Pollack, as was much talked about and as I brought up from last week, saying, I don't see guys out there. Look, David Pollack loves Georgia football. He's not trying to rip these guys or be mean. He's also a very honest guy. You listen to him from all the time when he was a player through now. He's not he's not going to mince his words. He's not going to hold anything back. Even if he's talking about Georgia players, coaches, whatever, he's going to say what he thinks. And what he thinks is he looked at the defensive line, the front seven. He says, I don't see guys that can win. And what he means is they cannot win those one-on-one battles. Our pass rush guy is not beating the guy in front of him to get pressure on the quarterback. I thought we would see that emerge. I thought some of those young guys would take a step up, learn from the Tennessee situation. I sort of bought into the idea that the Tennessee offense is so unique that it doesn't lend itself to great pass rush, even though we've had some big sack numbers against Tennessee in the past. But I thought, okay, this is unique. And Alabama is a more traditional pass offense with a run game that I didn't believe in. So I thought we would see better production from our defense in the pass rush. And overall, maybe they were a little better covered. I mean, we didn't see, just the one-on-one battles that we lost, jump balls that we lost like we did against Tennessee. We didn't see, Ryan Williams dropped the one bomb down the field for 40 plus yards that should have been a walk-away touchdown. But all the other plays there were guys in the zone. They were somewhat contested catches. They were open enough for Ty Simpson to get the ball to his player. And I keep saying, look, when you're super accurate, there is no defense for the perfect pass. I'm not saying all those passes were perfect, but many of them were spot on. And there were guys close, but not close enough. And the real issue was that he had all the time in the world to set his feet properly, perfectly, step into the throw exactly with all the right momentum and make the accurate throw because he had zero pressure. Okay. And I just was looking at that in the first half and thinking with this little pressure, we're toast. Yes, we're going to go out and beat Kentucky probably this week. Yes, we will play a bunch of teams and still get to a 9 or 10 win season and be in contention regardless of how that game finished on Saturday against Alabama. But in that first half, I'm seeing a team that can't stop an upper level offense that you have, or a one-dimensional offense. Here you have an offense that I said coming into the game, I don't think they're going to be able to run against us, and they didn't. So I said that Kirby's going to want to take the run away and make them one-dimensional, which I think compared to Tennessee was going to give us more of a chance to tee off and come at them and get pressure. And that happened all except for the part about getting pressure. Maybe Alabama's offensive line is that much better than I think or know they are, but again, they're much like us. They've got a couple guys that have been there a couple of years. Maybe they may be 20 or 30% more experienced about guys they still have, where we're still mixing and matching freshmen and new pieces, and with all the injuries we've had. Kalen Proctor is a legitimate force, as you saw in the game, and even given the chance to, get a catch and try to score, right? So they have one or two offensive linemen that, we would probably take over guys that we have right now if we could swap rosters. And I've made that kind of a comparison before. But they also have a lot of inexperienced guys, and they're breaking in some new guys. And offensive line had been trouble for them the last year or two. I mean, Milroe was able to bail them out of a lot of trouble, but they were often under duress. And, it seemed like offensive line play had taken a big step back, and that's a reason Alabama had taken a step back. So I did not expect this to be a better offensive line, but they stoned us. And we just, they looked totally like the brick wall that we couldn't get through trying to get any pressure on Simpson. So I'm watching in the first half and I'm thinking, okay, my entire perception of this team as a real contender in this era that we're in now, by comparison to the other teams out there, flawed but good enough, we're not good enough. We're good enough to be in a high-level team. Again, just what I was talking about Tennessee last year, this year. We're good enough to be a top 15 team by the time the season's over. But if that's the best we could do on pass rush, the best we could do on defense when you run up against a really high-level quarterback, high-level wide receivers without even a run game, then you're not good enough to find any matchup that you would see in a playoff and think, yeah, we should be the team that comes out of that. So my perspective, and I have been willing to accept and understand that we're not the team we were before. And I guess that's why I keep comforting myself and maybe you guys. And I'm not just doing it to make us feel better. I think that I'm trying to give an honest appraisal what I think the landscape of college football is right now. So I guess it's really that it is comforting to me as a Georgia fan. And maybe it's exciting to fans in general to say we have all this parity now. There's not the ability for Georgia or Ohio State or any of the other teams, Alabama, any other teams that have been high talent teams to just amass so much talent to just crush everybody. And that's us, right? We're not as deep at offensive line as we used to be. We're way not as deep at defensive line and front seven as we used to be. And, we're playing a bunch of, and really what it comes down to is this is a very young team. And I guess that's where I boiled down a lot of my predictions and discussion coming into this game. Is we're a young team and we grew up a lot in that Tennessee game, gained a lot of experience, and we have an off week to get better. And with the home crowd and all the juice, I just thought they were going to pick it up and get better. And we didn't see it, and we're not seeing it at all. We weren't, especially in the first half. We didn't see it emerge. And so through halftime, yeah, I'm not confident we're going to win the game. I mean, a lot of times I sit there and think we're down, but I see good things, and I see where we just missed here and we just missed there, and they just got a lucky break here and they got a lucky break there. So I come into the second half, even when we've been down in some of these games, with some optimism. Like, we can still do this. I see places where it could emerge. I saw that last year. We were down big against Georgia Tech. I thought, there's time. We're playing well enough. If we just fix this or this happens, I think we can get back in this. And we did. And I felt that way for a lot of the Tennessee game, to be honest, too. Even though we were getting torched a bit in the secondary, I felt like there was a little bit of a sense of wait for it. I think we can make a run here. When Alabama, we never got down even like we did against Tennessee, right? I mean, the halftime score, we get down 14-0. So we are, I guess, down the same 2 touchdowns we were at Tennessee. Again, I guess that's that perspective. I told you before. It's kind of funny when you see it, right? 14-0 somehow seems not as bad as 21-7. Because 14-0, you just look at it quickly and you're like, yeah, it's 2 touchdowns. 21-7 is like they got 20-something points. You still have single digits. It feels like you're just getting more blown out. But it's still the same 14 points, still the same 2 touchdowns. But early in the game, you see 14-0. You're like, okay, they've gotten going early. We need to get going. And we did. Again, credit to the offense. They do get it going. They get a at a point in the game where it felt like just we'd really been beat down, honestly. I mean, Alabama has 2 back-to-back 6+ minute drives, 14 play drives, where they just rammed the ball down our throat, except for they didn't ram it down our throat. They passed it down our throat. Again, they couldn't really run the ball. But they get these 14 play drives, run the length of the field, and they score, and they chew up all this clock. So they've chewed up almost an entire quarter out of the first 2 quarters on these 2 drives, and we're down 14-0. But then again, that's the thing about moving slow and methodical like that. And that runs against us sometimes too, because we tend to play that way, as I talked about. So the good news is all of a sudden we get a 3-play drive, we score a touchdown, and despite how bad everything has gone against us, we're only 1 score down and we're at home. So you're thinking this isn't so bad, right? And ultimately, we get to a position where you think, okay, this is going to get better. They get the field goal. Now they're 17-7, but then we get a responding touchdown and we're 17-14. And that's after they got the field goal off of our fumble, right? So again, without the fumble, you think we could be tied despite all that's gone wrong in the first half. So, but then the terrible of terrible things happens. They'd done these 2 14-play drives. They converted all these third downs we talked about. And then the guys on the radio made the point over and over again. They kept talking about, if you're listening on the radio, they kept talking about as Alabama put up that drive and scored right before the half, how it was only a minute and a half to go or whatever, and they didn't have any timeouts. And it never mattered. They just sliced through us, this time in a minute and 35 seconds. And I went back and looked at it. I was surprised to discover, because I kept thinking about, well, what did they do? I kind of went back and I looked for what did they do on third down on all those drives. I mean, I kind of remembered watching it, but I wrote it down so we could talk about it here, and I made notes about it. Well, what I didn't realize was they didn't even have a third down on that third touchdown drive in the half. Okay, they just went down the field and like it was 1st and 10, 2nd and 8. They had 1. I'm sorry, they had 3rd and 1, which they easily converted on a 4-yard pass. And then 1st and 10, 1st and 10, 2nd and 10, 1st and 10, 1st and 10, 1st and goal, and then what do you call? Oh, well, yeah, that's it. 1st and goal, and then they scored. So that's part of. I mean, that's just terrible. I mean, it looked like we'd righted the ship, right? And you're thinking, look, it's only a 3-point game. I know they get the ball to start the first half. All we got to do is try to keep them from scoring here, right? Because we know we don't want them to score because they get the ball first in the first half. So they've got that 2-for-1 opportunity if they score late in the half. And that's after we've gotten it back to 14-7, and we've kind of ride the ship. And frankly, without the Frazier fumble, which the defense, again, held them up. They only go 5 yards in 4 plays. They end up kicking the field goal. So, again, the defense shows a little heart, a little passion, keeps them from making it much worse with a touchdown. And so, but without that fumble, then it could have been 14 all easily. Either way, though, the defense, after bowing up and looking good for a couple drives and giving us a chance to get back to a 1-possession game, or it could have been tied without the fumble, then they just get eviscerated on this 3-play drive. And it's the same thing. No pass rush, no pressure. Alabama's just able to execute. Just doom, doom, doom. And they only even have 1 third drive for third down on the thing. We don't even force them a third down. So, I mean, that's how I feel in the first half. But then I start thinking about it at halftime. And I realize we did mount this comeback a little bit. And it was because the defense started making some plays. They looked terrible on that drive before the half. And so now I'm realizing, I guess really the perspective is maybe I'm not giving up on the dream yet that this team could develop into a playoff team. And Seth Emerson, in his article that is out today in The Athletic, he said, the reality is Georgia's just not a very good team right now. That feels a little harsh. And I know, look, I love Seth Emerson. I think he calls it right 99% of the time. I mean, I guess we still are that team that's full of 5- and 4-star talent, most of which is very young and not as experienced. And I would say now we're seeing, maybe compared to a couple of those other teams out there, we are less advanced. And right now, maybe there's no matchup that you'd feel that great about against other elite teams in the playoff based on what you saw here with Alabama and even the Tennessee game. But I guess the funny thing is how uneven it is. What has characterized Georgia football a lot in the last 10 years has been the ability to completely dominate sections of the game while more or less playing the rest of the game even. which is there have been some sections where we kind of slowed down. Like maybe we jumped out to a 17 to nothing lead in the first quarter with a great defensive play, a couple good offensive drives, and then our offense has a 3-and-out and another, 5 or 6 play, 30-yard drive, and then punts. And so we start slowing down, and then the other team starts getting a little momentum, and next thing you know, they're getting a couple first downs. And just like I talked about what we did here in this Alabama game, where we seemingly dominated the first and most of the second quarter, then maybe the other team would score right before the half, and all of a sudden it's like 17-7, and you're thinking, feels like we totally own that game, but it's really only a 10-point game, and they get the ball first to start the second half. So this could be a one-score game if we're not careful coming out of halftime. That I feel like that has been the story for Georgia football a lot of times in the past, but we were kind of able to hold steady. What I think used to be the pattern is you'd see us either start kind of even and then explode in the second or third quarters, or maybe explode in the first quarter, quarter and a half, and play a little bit to a lull in the second and third quarter, and then explode later in the third and fourth quarter and just put the game away. But the important aspect of that wave I'm talking about is that we either played even or dominant. And what's really frustrating right now is this team has moments of dominance, okay? If you think about it with Tennessee owned the first quarter, we owned the second and third quarters, and then it was kind of a fair fight in the fourth quarter. So in this game, Alabama owned the first quarter and a half, much like they did in the game last year, and thankfully it wasn't as bad. Last year they were much more dynamic in that quarter. They scored 18 or 28 points. I mean, one quarter and one drive into the game last year, and we're down 28-0. And unbelievably, we come all the way back out of that hole. Well, this time it felt more doable and less doable all at the same time. Because honestly, that game, you did feel like, look, we just missed here, we just missed there, here was an interception, they, got this and they got that. I mean, I remember thinking, even as they were up 28-0, I was like, I remember thinking we could yet come back. There's a lot of game here. I don't feel like this is over. And it wasn't. I felt after those first two drives, down 14-0, I felt like I don't see how we come back from this. I mean, I wasn't thinking we were going to get blown out. I thought we would right the ship enough to not be embarrassed, or at least I hoped we did. But again, it was the authority of it. It's two back-to-back 14-play drives over 6 minutes. It just and just first down after first down. They're 8 of 8 on their first 8 third downs, right? I mean, it just like, that's the thing. So we got what we wanted. The game flowed like I told you it would coming into it. I said, look, I think we'll take the run away from them. I think we're going to force them to try to move the ball downfield, chunk at a time. We're not going to give up a lot of big plays. We're going to try to make them make play after play, make it harder on them. I don't know if they'll make a lot of mistakes, but hopefully you'll see the pass rush emerge. Now, that's where I was wrong. That didn't happen. And so because of that, we got what we wanted. They didn't run the ball well. They were not very effective. They ran it some just to keep us honest, but they didn't get much out of that. We did force them. We didn't give up a ton of big plays, though it might have seemed like it. We mostly kept the ball in front of us, and we forced them into 8 third downs in their first 2 drives. They just converted all of them, which is terrible. So the expectation that I had was that we would take advantage of and at least shut down some of those third downs, which would help us either force punts, force field goals, force decisions on to go for it on fourth down, something. All hallmarks of what Georgia usually does. But and I did write this down, so I want you, they had 3rd and 8, 3rd and 10, 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6, which was 3rd and goal actually, but from the 6. That was on the first drive. On the second drive, it's 3rd and 7, 3rd and 6, 3rd and 2, 3rd and 4. So they actually got a little more powerful on the second drive. The first one, I mean, we did exactly what we wanted on the first drive of the game when they got the ball. On the first series, we forced them into 3rd and long, 3rd and 8. That's where we want to be, right? All right, send the pass rush. Let's make them make a quick play, a mistake. Let's make them make a short throw like a check down and then stuff it behind the line. That's where you usually see us be successful, right? Didn't happen. They pick it up. 3rd and 10. Next, so they get the first down. Then right after that, 3rd and 8, we force them into 3rd and 10. Now you're thinking, great, this is even better. Bring the guys, bring the pass rush. They pick it up. They get a 10-yard play on 3rd and 10. And then they pick up 3rd and 5, and then they pick up 3rd and goal. We just didn't. I mean, they averaged 3rd and 6 across these 8 3rd downs in the first 2 drives that went 14 plays and over 6 minutes each, and both into touchdowns. And our defense never got off the field. They never made that play. We lost the one-on-one matchups and the man up kind of moment, right? They outmanned us and outgunned us, and they out-executed us. We got what we wanted. They didn't run. We made them one-dimensional. We forced them into the pass. We forced them into 3rd down after 3rd down. But they executed, and we didn't. And if we can't get a good team, a one-dimensional offensive team off the field on 3rd down, then how are we going to make it through the playoffs? That's what I was feeling. But then, we start riding the ship. I mean, pretty quickly after that, after their second touchdown drive, then we get the touchdown in there. Then we force them into a punt. And that's great, except for we fumble on our own, we fumble on our own, what do you call it? What am I trying to say? Oh, well, we fumble inside our own 7. And again, here's an individual moment lost. Zachariah Branch has been awesome. I hate to hardly even call him out in any negative form, okay? He has been as electric and exciting as we hoped he'd be, and he's definitely rejuvenating what we think a lot of our prospects for this offense are. But Zachariah Branch makes a mental error. He makes a mistake. He fields the punt, and he fair catches for this punt at the 7 yard line. Okay. And this ends up being a crucial moment in the game. Everybody's heard it. If you've watched enough football, you know what the rule is. You put your foot on a kickoff or a punt. You put your foot on your heel on the 10 yard line. And if the ball's over your head, you let it bounce and see if it gets in the end zone, and you get the touchback. There's just no advantage to fielding a punt. Now, if you, for some reason, if that punt inside the 10, it was a punt and they've totally they've outkicked the coverage, and you can actually make a return, then that's a reason to do it. And he apparently waved for the fair catch. Then he caught it. He did take off running. And so I was excited for a moment. The officials immediately blew it dead and said, no, he made the fair catch. It's down at the 6. And so this becomes a big deal, because when Nate Frazier runs for 2 yards and then fumbles, then Bama's got the ball, right already in field goal range. They don't even have to gain a yard. And it looks like they could get a touchdown. So again, the defense steps up at this moment. Huge moment. Again, defense did this against Tennessee too. When the strip sack fumble happened in the 4th quarter, if they had given up that touchdown, we never would have won that game. So here we're already down 14, or we'd been down 14-0. Now it's 14-7. We finally get a punt, and we immediately fumble the ball back to them. So they have the chance to go up 21-7, but the defense holds. And the field goal's a gimme already from there. So they get the field goal, but the defense holds. And then we get the ball back. We go 11 plays, 75 yards. But these are the kind of individual moments where we were losing, though. Even Zachariah Branch has been awesome for us. Why is he fair catching that ball? And fair catching that ball, he didn't make Nate Frazier fumble, but it just meant that instead of when Frazier fumbles, instead of the ball being at the 25 or the 30 or something like that after a couple plays, the ball's inside our 10, So that's just, again, we're just losing these little battles and making mistakes all over the place and not doing what we'd done so well. And we talked about how the Tennessee game was a matter of we just out-executed them by a play or two. Well, we under-executed against Alabama in every play. I mean, they just so many times they had 3rd and 8 and they got 9, 3rd and 10 and they got 10. I mean, just, and it just seemed like we got right to the point where we need to. You force them into a 3rd and long, and then you don't bring it home. You don't finish. And a lot of that was individual battles being lost, guys getting lost in coverage, guys just not doing just not getting it done. And then the whole experience of fighting back to get within the score, even with the fumble, you're only the 3 points down. And then the defense, just after riding the ship, just gets eviscerated. Again, 8 plays, 75 yards, 1 minute and 34 seconds right before the half. And this could have been the kiss of death, because, again, Bama's getting the ball to start the second half. And thus far, we haven't shown that we're consistently stopping. We stopped them 1 or 2 times. We stopped them basically twice. We forced a punt and then fumbled it away immediately, and they got a field goal, and the field goal was essentially a stop too, because they go nowhere on that play. So, but then you get torched on that next one. Bama is now up 17 or 24-14 at the half. And they're going to get the ball to start the second half. And the defense immediately starts by giving up yards in the second half. But they do force a third down, finally, and it goes awry, and Alabama has to go for the field goal. And this is the ugliest field goal I've seen in a team that could be expected to win anything in a long time. But this is another way where the game goes right for what I talked about coming into the game. I said we talked about the matchups. Alabama offense versus our defense, our offense versus their defense. And a lot of these things happen just like I said they would. I said, I don't think they'll be able to run against us. And I think we will be able to run against them. And I think we're going to run for a lot. I think this is going to be a good running game. Well, it was. We ran for 227 yards. I was a little disappointed. They actually ended up getting over 117 yards. But for the most part, the run was not effective for them. We did stifle the run. We outgained Alabama on the run. I mean, I can't believe that we lost a game that we ran for 227 yards and held them under 120. I mean, we outrushed them by over 100 yards or around 100 yards over 100 yards, and we still lost the game. And that's just brutal. That's hard to fathom. And we did have the better field goal kicker. So when we needed a field goal, we got the field goal. When they needed a field goal to put them up by when they started the third quarter with a chance to, again, get two scores, they'd scored the touchdown before the half. Now they got a chance to extend the lead with a field goal because we did at least force the third down, force them into it. Horrible field goal. So I mean, mostly things went the way that I expected to. But as it turned out, the other things I thought would happen, did happen. It was the score was about what I thought it'd be. The flow of the game was about what I thought. I said maybe Alabama starts off a little better, and then we kind of come back and then start building and building. But we never closed. I mean, the defense does. After that field goal, the defense allows nothing. Alabama goes nowhere, okay, after the 49 yards and the missed field goal. They go nowhere on their next two drives. They gain a total of like 26 yards. They even have the third drive after that. So that's on their first two drives. The third drive, they do manage to go about 50 yards, but we'd pinned them in so deep, they still end up punting from our 40 when we finally stop them and force another third down. So the defense has righted the ship. Obviously, you know what happened. You know that it was 24-14 at the half and 24-21 was the final. So you know that we held them to scoreless in the second half. Three times we had the ball, twice fit midfield basically, with a chance to take the lead, and we failed to do it. Again, just could not execute. And, obviously, look, I don't want to rip on Taylor, the freshman wide receiver, too much. He's one of our less experienced receivers. He's in there. Probably part of the reason that play's open. I'd love to hear more of a breakdown of how that play worked. I heard Kirby Smart say after the game, I heard him say that play was one that they had a special play for. They were looking for a certain kind of coverage, and if they thought they got the right defense, Bobo would call it. They called it. Gunner executes it perfectly. The offensive line gave him the time. He had plenty of time. He puts the ball right on the guy's hands, and he just drops it. And so you live and die by that. If one of the reasons that play worked is because Alabama jumped on Zachariah Branch and whoever the other guys that were in the thing, and they lost him, that it was like a safety had to make a choice and he didn't make the right choice. If that's how that play worked, I haven't gone back and rewatched it. I don't know what the execution was, but just listening to Kirby talk about it, that's the sense I had of it. Is it's one of those plays that probably part of the reason you end up with, that's not London Humphreys down there or Dylan Bell or Zachariah Branch, is because, or Colby Young, is because A, it had to be a speedster to get there, so he's got to be one of the fastest guys, and B, it had to be somebody that they probably didn't have three checks on at the line and two different guys making decisions about, right? So he's inexperienced, and it's a big moment, and he gets a little hand tied up and he drops the ball. And it's terrible because the moment it happened, I had flashes of, probably the greatest receiver in Georgia history, Terrence Edwards, dropping a wide open touchdown pass against Florida during that long epic period when we couldn't beat Florida. I mean, we didn't lose 9 in a row ever, but we lost like multiple 6 and 7 in a row, then win one. And so we're in this terrible streak where we lost 21 of 24 games to Florida or whatever. And One of the ones we could have won involved a play just like that, right? A touchdown, just surefire touchdown, just dropped in the field of play, wide open. But, and Taylor may go on to be a great wide receiver for us, and he may learn from this. So again, he's the last guy I want to rip on this, the way this worked out. Just bad luck, okay? But he should have caught it. He would have walked into the end zone, and we'd have been up 28-24. And look, you can't say for sure that we'd have won the game because nobody scored the rest of the game after that play. But nobody scored the rest of the game of that play. Now, it'd be different. Once you score, you kick off. We were consistently able to, even though we didn't score, we left Alabama playing from inside or around their own 10. So it's a big difference when they get the ball after a kickoff and you've scored and you've taken the lead. And now it's going into the end of the third quarter or in the fourth quarter, and they're down by more than a field goal. So they're going to call the game different. So you can't necessarily extrapolate that, we would have won. But the short answer is, there's no doubt about the fact he catches the ball, goes in the end zone, we're going to have the lead. And so after all that's gone wrong in this game and everything that's happened and all the frustration, the Alabama, here you're taking a lead at home with the crowd in a frenzy, okay? And up to this point, Alabama's done nothing in the second half. And as we would know, they would go on to do nothing from a scoring point of view. They would do just enough to close out the game, ultimately. But they did nothing to actually put points on the board. So there's a pretty decent chance you have look, again, if nothing else, you can't win a game you don't lead at some point. I talked about how terrible it was, that 2nd and 26, the horrible Alabama play from the national championship game was the only time in the entire game they led. But they did lead at that moment. So at some point, you can only win the game when you lead at some point, right? And that was a moment to lead. And then we get to the other big problem of the second half. And Kirby has defended this and talked about it, but I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to give Kirby all the slack in the world. I will tell you that I think he's wrong. I would argue with Kirby if I had the chance to sit with him now. And that would be a shame because it'd be the first time I ever got to talk to him face to face. And I would hate for it to be this argument over that. But if this was the moment we had to sit and talk about it, I will tell you, no matter how many times he defends that and tells you that everything was right and this is the way they practiced it and planned it, it was absolutely the wrong choice. And I know a lot of people have already said that, but it was. There's just no logic here that says it wasn't the wrong choice to go for that fourth down play and not take the field goal. But that's even another choice or two after the first choices or two, okay? So, which I guess what I'm trying to say is the first thing is this game had been marred all game by the refs deciding to go back and look at spots. And on a certain level, I'm glad they're getting spots right because it's aggravating sometimes when you see how bad the spots are. And a couple times, at least once it worked in our favor or could have worked in our favor, once it worked in Alabama's favor. It didn't end up costing either team when they did it, but they stopped the play. They had ruled on a catch where Ryan Williams made the catch and clearly stepped out of bounds, or it was like a sweep run, whatever it was. He clearly stepped out of bounds about a half a yard shy of the first down, and it turned into a third down play, third and half a yard. They picked it up. So the review, originally they said he got the first down. The review clearly showed he didn't. They put it back. They immediately picked up the first down, so it didn't end up mattering much, but they got it right. And the same thing happened to us when McCray looked like he dove and possibly nipped the front line of the end zone with the tip of the ball before he hit the ground. They reviewed it and said he didn't. It was close. It was hard to tell. They probably got the call right that he was just short. They had stopped a quick play. So we had been doing the play that Kirby was talking about. We went quick. We got down to the goal line. They got back up. They gave him the ball, and they ran the play again, and it looked like he was just going to blast in the end zone. They blew the play dead, did a review. After a long review, and Alabama gets a chance to get themselves set, we come back out, and we still busted in the end zone. But that should be instructive, right? Because part of Kirby's defense of the fourth down call that Cash Jones fails on in the fourth quarter, part of his defense was twofold. A couple things he said. He said, first of all, they practiced it this way. and they've already decided metrics and everything go when it's fourth and certain distance, you go for it. And they practiced it as a 2-for-1, where when you're inside 3-4 yards, if you pick up 2 or 3 yards, you close that gap. So, it was 3rd and 3, and gunner comes up just short, and so they called it 4th and 1. So it's super short. So they're saying, look, you're going to go. And that's the metric and the way they practice it. And they're going to do 2 plays, and they have 2 plays ready to go. So the only question Kirby said that is whether you decide to keep going with tempo or you slow down. But if you slow down and you get the right player, or you substitute, then you give them a chance, as he described it, to set their cleats in the ground and get ready for it. Well, here's the problem with that logic. We had gone quick and had some success, but we also had a bunch of plays where, we ran the ball for 227 yards in the game, and not all of that was on tempo. A lot of it was just beating them man on man up front, blowing them off the blocks, and our running backs and guys finding holes and making it happen. And even in the similar circumstance, like I said, when earlier in the game to get to 21, when we got to our 21 points, when McCray appeared to score on a quick play right after getting to the goal line, and then they stopped it for review, and it's a long, huge timeout, and now Alabama has all the time in the world to get their cleats set in the ground and get ready for whatever play we're going to run from the goal line. We come back out after review, and the review goes against us, and we slam it in the end zone anyway. So I don't think the logic is sound that we needed to, just because we'd been successful on quick hitters before, that we need to do it. And here's the other reason why not, is because of that review situation. This was a weird play. For some reason, the TV, when showing this play, showed us the whole play from behind the play. They were using like a little aerial camera from behind. They never got the first down line put up on the screen. So gunner ends up running the ball. It's a keeper. It's 3rd and 3. It's a keeper. And we only get this strange aerial view, no first down line, so it's a little unclear where it is. Georgia gets up and tries to run the play quickly. The play gets blown up. It goes to Cash Jones, and he gets tackled for a loss, and we lose our chance to score. The other problem I have with doing this quick is, even if, look, tempo, no tempo is a 50-50 coin flip, right? We've been beating them with tempo. We also beat them without tempo. We've been blowing them off the ball. It's fine. It's a coin flip. Yes, tempo's good. Tempo's not good. We can line up and run the play we want. If we have plenty of time, that works too, whichever. That's not the problem here. The problem here is that you had a terrible spot, it seemed like. Even without the line and the weird angle, it seemed to many people that gunner had gained the necessary yardage to get the first down. So by doing this tempo play and going super quick, you didn't give the replay booth, you didn't give the officials a chance to actually check the spot. And you know what? The spot, and I know that maybe they check the spot and it comes back and there's nothing definitive and they say, still 4th down. That could have happened. But in the particular play, at least from the replay I saw, the ball and gunner and where he landed was all pretty viewable if you see it. So if he actually made the line, and it looked like he might have, then there's a decent chance. It's not, in other words, it's not a pile play. Like, what's the point I definitely wouldn't care about a review if it's one of those plays in the pile where you can't even see anything, right? Last week that worked for us. Unbelievably, you could see on the game-winning touchdown in overtime that McCray actually got over the line in the pile. Usually it doesn't work that way. So, but I'm all for just, look, we don't need a review of a pile play. But Gunner pretty much was tackled in open space, and you could see clearly where his head, the ball, his shoulders, everything was. So I would have loved to have seen the review there. So I think the other thing, when you talk about giving yourself the most different chances in a key moment, one chance was to not even have to run a 4th down play or decide to take the field goal. One chance was just to find out and make sure and let the officials review the damn play and figure out if we actually got the first down. And they had been willing to review plays. They'd been doing it multiple times throughout the game on the spot. So I think if you just slow the play down or take a timeout, call for the review, take the timeout and let them sort it out and just make sure. And so then maybe you lose that. Maybe the replay comes back and that just the play stands, whatever. So, but you still have a better than average chance, I think, if you want to go for it on 4th down. Now at least you can get your right personnel in. And that's the other problem. They said, well, we practice this 2-for-1 and this, that, and the other. Well, did your 2-for-1 scenarios that say go quick, say you're going to end up with Cash Jones trying to beat LT Overton on the right side of the line in this quick play. And I mean, Alabama blew that play up and they're in the backfield. And Cash had nobody lead blocking for him. And he's like our smallest guy. Look, I love Cash. And again, I'm not saying anything bad about Cash. Cash Jones is a valuable player. I never would have thought so, but I love that he's out there. And if they wanted to run some kind of an option play, like if Gunner could have pulled out of that and Cash fakes like a lead block and then runs out like a tight end in front of him, and Gunner has a run pass option to either flip it to Cash or take the run, and you got the Alabama guys chasing two smaller, faster guys, I might have liked that play. But the play you end up with is you end up with Cash Jones, you end up with a bruiser back need, right? You need McCray or you need Bowens in this game if you're going to run the ball with them. Guys who just can push forward and get that half yard. And instead you end up with Cash Jones with no blocking. And so again, the idea of saying went with the tempo here is a bad call, because the tempo forced you had Cash Jones in there for third down, and that makes sense because he's your third down guy. Sometimes when the play breaks down, he's the guy you end up passing to on third out of the backfield. Gunner ends up keeping the ball, but you still end up with Cash in the play because you're not substituting, because that's part of the tempo, right? You can't substitute or the whole thing slows down, because then they can substitute and the play comes to a dead stop, basically. Well, you're not substituting, but now you got the wrong guy in there. And I'm just trying to say, look, it's the wrong guy because Cash Jones isn't your guy who leans forward and gets you the half yard. Now, maybe he's the speed guy who can get out there and beat, but he couldn't, right? The way the play was designed, he was too close to the line. When Overton busts through and just gets a hand on his foot, because Overton's that big and he's that small, he knocks him down for the 3-yard loss and the play's dead. So there's no blocking out in front of him. It's a disorganized play. I honestly, look, I don't have any evidence to this one right now, but I hate when we go tempo on these key goal line, touchdown, fourth down kind of plays anyway. I just feel like we fake ourselves out and we psych ourselves out and screw it up more often than not. Yeah, I think when we go tempo mid-game out in the open field, I think it's great. But when it comes down to the third and goal or fourth and goal you have to have before making the tough choice about field goal or not, I hate tempo. I feel like it's never worked for us. Now I have no evidence of that. That's just my gut feeling. I bet a bunch of you will tell me, yeah, I have that same gut feeling too. It never freaking works. That's how I feel. So I don't like tempo in that case as the idea. I can get behind the 2-for-1 deal. And Kirby said, look, they'd already guaranteed that, and he would run it 10 out of 10 times he'd go for it because they practice it as the 2-for-1. And he said the only choice is tempo, no tempo. Well, then make the choice for no tempo, because you got a freaking potential review that gives you the first down without running a play. And then you don't have to decide between fourth down and going for it and a field goal that ties the game. Okay? Give yourself every statistical chance to win the down. And you know what? If I'm wrong and there's a replay out there, because I haven't really seen it, and again, the actual live play didn't even have a line marked on the field because of the way the play worked, and we had the strange overhead angle. But I feel like, and I heard multiple people express the same idea, that it seems like Gunner maybe got the first down. And we just, I think, needed to call the timeout even. Go the opposite of tempo. Call the timeout if you have to and make replay, look at it. And then if they didn't do it, now you've had some real time to evaluate instead of just like, hey, we practice this, it's 2-for-1, we're going for it. Now you have some real time to evaluate and say, should we or should we not stick with that plan? I understand that you came into it with a plan. It's good to have a plan in advance so that you can move quickly. And the plan was 2-for-1, 2 plays. Okay. But in reality, this is a terrible choice to not take the field goal. Now, again, I've already said we can't know for sure that you kick the field goal and nobody ever is going to score again this game and we're going to overtime. But it's 13 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. Nobody ever scored again in the game. So there's every reason to believe that it's possible. The Georgia defense was doing its job. The one difference is instead of leaving Alabama at their own 10, which it was, the positive result of missing the fourth down is you still got Alabama pinned down inside their 10, and you've already had them, the last time you had them pinned down inside the 10, they went 3 and out, punted, and you got the ball back at midfield. So in a perfect world, you're thinking that's what's going to happen here, and you got 13 minutes to go. So you're thinking you're going to get another possession or two. But you know what else you should be thinking? It's fourth quarter. It's 13 minutes to go. Everybody's in the both teams in this game are capable of grinding out 4, 6, 8 minute drives. What if Alabama goes on an 8 minute drive? What if you miss this fourth down, as we did, and Alabama goes on an 8 minute drive, okay, and scores? Now, the game's not over. You still have 5 or 6 minutes, 4 or 5 minutes on the clock, right? But now you're down 2 scores because you didn't take the score. But if you take the field goal, the worst that can happen to you, whether Alabama throws a 75-yard bomb on the first play or they do a methodical clock-eating drive, you kick the field goal. You're going to have 13 minutes to play. Alabama's going to get the ball back. You're going to be tied, and the worst they can do is go up 1 score. And they're unlikely to burn 13 minutes doing that. Okay, it's possible. Teams have done it, and Georgia's done it to some teams, but it's unlikely. So the most likely scenario, I mean, the way your defense is playing, you've got a good chance that you're going to make them punt. The game's going to stay tied. And worst case scenario, you go to overtime. The way the game flowed, that seems to be what would have happened. So it's not just that we would have gone to overtime. It's just, look at the logic of this. You give up this field goal here, and you put yourself in a position where, whether it's one busted play or a drive, Alabama can go up 2 scores and leave you with not enough time or a statistically challenging amount of time left to be able to score, stop Alabama, and score again. Okay? So there's no logic whatsoever. I don't care what you've practiced. I don't care what analytics said. I'm a big fan of looking at the analytics and thinking about it, but I'm also going to look at the game situation and say, do the math. We score here. We put the field goal up, 13 minutes to go. If our defense does its job, okay, the best case scenario, you're saying, well, look, if we go for it, our defense has been making them punt and we're going to get the ball back at midfield. Great. Kick the field goal. Make them punt. Get the ball back. You won't get it back at midfield because they're probably going to have the ball at the 25 instead of the 10. But you'll get the ball back at your own 35 if you make them punt on a 3-and-out, right? And now you can drive down and put the winning points on the game. And again, worst case scenario, you get to control the game. If you can go down and score the touchdown the next time, and the next time I probably would go for fourth down. Why not? Game's tied. If you can get a touchdown, see, that's the way you got to look at it, right? Now, if I come back down and I get down to a 4th and goal again, this time I think I do sidestep the field goal because now it's going to be somewhere between 7, 8, 2, 3, 5 minutes, somewhere in there. So let's say between 2 and 8 minutes left in the game. If you make them punt, get the ball back, drive back down, and you get back down to another 4th and goal, you've already got the tie ball game in your pocket. If you fail, you're going to leave them on the goal line. Yes, a field goal could lose because it's a tie game. But if you get the touchdown, it takes a touchdown to tie you. And a field goal does no good. And a field goal is so much easier when the game's on the line, right? You only have to get... Now, so that's the other thing. Plus, here's the other thing. In this game, I said coming into it, the advantage we had in special teams is huge, right? Our punter was better throughout the game than their punter. I mean, that's a small margin, but our punter's great. But our field goal kicker is reliable and true, and their guy, as somebody in one of the broadcasters, I think it was our broadcast announcer, somebody pointed out, they thought maybe the ball was tipped. They went back and they looked at slow motion on the field goal that he missed in the third quarter, the Alabama kicker. It wasn't tipped. As they pointed out, he nearly kicked the ball out of bounds. It was that bad, okay? Now, he's not going to be that bad on every game, but I told you he'd already missed a makeable kick in the Florida State game. So he's already had like maybe 4 kicks in the year. So he's like 2 for 4 on the season at this point after missing in the third quarter against us. So another reason to just make sure you have the tie in your pocket is if this thing goes to overtime, you got the home crowd, you've come all the way back from a bad start against this heated rival in this game that your crowd's going to be in a frenzy, and you've got a weapon at field goal kicking, which a lot of time overtime comes down to, and they've got a guy who kicks it out of bounds on a makeable kick. Okay. So he's not going to do that every time, but I like my chances if we get this game to overtime when we've got one of the best kickers in the nation and they've got a guy who's not. Okay. So everything about the logic says take the frickin' field goal. There's just no explanation that makes any sense. All you do is open yourself to being down 2 scores with less time to respond than necessary. I completely agree. Like I said, if I get that field goal and I get a chance again, I'm probably going to go for the win the next time because I still have the time in my pocket and I feel good about overtime. But it makes no sense to open yourself up at this point to being down 2 scores with only time to get 1 score, and that's what could have happened here. Again, 13 minutes on the clock. They put some kind of a drive. The worst case scenario, the best case scenario, if they ended up scoring, would be they do like a 1 play, a bust to Williams, and he goes 75 yards like he did last year, and they go up a touchdown. That would have been the best scenario because now you're down 10 points, but you would have 11 minutes to respond, which is enough time to get the ball back, drive any drive you want, get the touch, get either the field goal or the touchdown or the 10. Try and get, a stop defensively and then come back and tie or win the game. That's reasonable from 11 minutes. But if you look at it and you say, what if they get the ball and you left the 3 points out there and they go, again, another 12, 14 yard drive covering 6 minutes. They score and they go up by 10. And now you got 7 minutes to respond and stop them and then try to respond again. And basically, you're also in the position where you absolutely are going to have to score. You're going to get 2 drives and you're going to have to score in 2 drives, okay? Not 2 drives to get 1 score, but 2 drives to get 2 scores. You put yourself in a position where statistically that's just really hard. So there's just no explanation. I'm sorry. I will not buy it. I will not accept it. I do believe in aggressive, but I think this is a huge coaching mistake. And I think every part of this is bungled. I think you ran a bad play. I think you chose tempo when Kirby admits that you could have had either decide to, to substitute or take the time and get the right play or go tempo. They chose to go tempo. Well, that's terrible because you got the wrong back in there for 4th and inches. We got 2 different guys who'd be great for 4th and inches, okay? Or just even the play should have been, what about Gunner? What about just a quarterback sneak? It's 4th and inches, and you got a tough-nosed quarterback. Last 2 times you needed a first down, and Gunner went for it. You got a third, he picked up like 3 yards on 3rd and 1, and he picked up another one. He ran for 21 yards on the same drive, okay? Let's give it to Gunner again. I mean, the last thing we want to do is get this ball going sideways to Cash Jones against the best defenders on that side of the line with no blocking in front of Cash. So whatever play you had there, it's the wrong play. It's the wrong personnel. If you knew you were going to go for 2 plays, then you should have switched the personnel. I know Cash Jones is your 3rd down back on the 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4 that you had before. But if you already knew you were doing the 2-for, then you needed to switch out and get a different back in there so that you were ready for the 4th down play. And you weren't. So that's a bad coaching mistake. Not trying to get the review, bad coaching mistake. Then once you take the time and think about it, you should have realized there's no way that you can defend the logic of not taking the 3 points here. Aggressive doesn't get it done here. Failing here, it's amazing we actually still had a chance to win this game, even after that terrible decision. But that's where the Georgia defense did its job. But again, you just put yourself in the position where you're asking too much, right? When it finally came down to it, and one more time, when the offense stalled at midfield, because Bama does. The Bama offense never scores, but now they do enough, right? They get the ball after that. They go 9 plays, 50 yards. They get to our 40. We finally force them to punt. They punt, and we have to start from our 5 again. So we get from our 5 back out to the 49, but then our drive stalls. Because, again, that's what happens when you make people drive the field, right? So now we have to face a punt, and we have to punt the ball away with 3:19 to go, and we never get the ball back. And why? Because they do it, we don't. When it got down to a critical 3rd and short, they call timeout. They come back out of the timeout, or maybe we called the timeout. I guess we might have called timeout. Either way, they come out of the timeout, and they didn't have to go tempo. They just had a brilliant freaking play call. They got all the misdirection going one way. They slipped Jam Miller out the other way. Ty Simpson just flicks the ball to him like a few feet in front of him. Jam runs for 7-8 yards on when he only needed 1 or 2, and the game is over. And it's just, again, it just highlighted the fact that we just got outcoached. Okay, we made the wrong decisions, and when it came time to run the critical plays from short distance that would win the game, we come up with some busted looking crazy play that's terrible, and they come up with a game sealer that looks brilliant, right? That we're misdirected on. We don't even know where to go. And we got to where we had to punt the ball with 3 minutes and 20 seconds because we get out to midfield. And yeah, we had a pass that should have gone for more, like a screen pass only goes for 1 yard. I think Colby Yard gets a 1 yard pass on first down. Then it's incomplete on the second down. And then you get to, they did some kind of a throw down the line or whatever to Cash Jones. So again, you already had Cash Jones on a third down on the drive before, and he lost 4 yards going out to the right on a play. Now it was a different play. I think it was a throw or a heavy toss, and he got upended for loss. But that play was so bad. That's where you should have been 2 for 1-ing. Okay, that play was so bad. It was 3rd and 9 from the 45. This is a time where I would have 2 for 1'd. I think I might have risked the game here. If you get 5 or 6 yards and you come up and you got 4th and 3, but it's 3 minutes to go in the game, I think it's worth taking the chance here. I mean, if you believe in your defense and they're going to get the stop, even if you leave them the ball at midfield, then you got to get 3 and out and make them punt from midfield to preserve the game. If they even get a first down and they get the field goal, well, all right, now you're down 6. You still have a chance to get a touchdown and win if you get the ball back. So I might go for the 2 for 1 there, and I would make sure I have the kind of play on 3rd and 9 that I'm at least getting some yards. And I'm sure they're going to tell you they thought the play they ran was going to get some yards. But that play gets blown up. It's a terrible play. Cash Jones, you loses 3 or 4 yards, 4 yards. And so now you're at 4th and 13. And you probably should punt from there. I mean, the number of plays you could count on to pick up 13 yards are just not good. So now it statistically probably doesn't make any sense. And you're all the way back at your 40. Now you're almost in field goal range. Granted, we don't think much of their kicker. We're not that worried about him. But if they get 10 or 15 yards, they can get a kick, and now you're going to have to score a touchdown to win. We're still going to want to score the touchdown to win anyway, so you're putting it on the defense if you go for it on the 4th down. But I'm just not sure it's the right call there to punt. But I think you really made it harder because, again, you get some bad play calling there, and we should have had a 2 for 1 strategy going to make sure that we got some positive yardage. Maybe I run the quarterback keeper on 3rd and 9, so I get 3, 4, 5, 6 yards at least. I think, or at least that's what I hope I'm going to get, so that I get 4th and 3 or 4th and 2 from their 48. And now I'm thinking, well, rather than punt with 3 minutes to go, and maybe I never get the ball back and I'm still trailing by 3, I go for that. And the worst case scenario is hopefully my defense can stand up. But I've given myself one more statistical chance than to get that done. So I hate the coaching in the way it came down in the 4th quarter. I'm also going to say what's going on in the coaching. I mean, I hate to be this critical, as good as these people have been for us in recent years. But we do have to look at it a little bit. Maybe there's nothing they can do. I can certainly believe that if I sat down with the coaches, I said, look, we planned and schemed this, and we did that and did this, and it just didn't work. But this is a second game in a row where we come out and we get our heads handed to us in the first half. And it's great that we can make these adjustments. It's wonderful to be the adjustment kings. But wouldn't it be nice to at least play? I mean, I'm not saying you got to dominate the first half, but what if we just play even? I mean, what if the first half, you're not just getting torched on 8 of 8 on 3rd down and 28 plays and 2 drives with 2 touchdowns? What if the defense actually seems like they've got a little bit more readiness for this offense? And I'm sure they did. I mean, I'm sure their plan like I said, on some level, it kind of worked. They stayed out of the run. They didn't give up much running. They got them in a 3rd down. So I'm sure that on a certain level, the coaches say, look, we did what we did. But part of me is like, why is it 2 games in a row we just start off in the 1st and 2nd quarter and we can't get anything done? And then we make these big adjustments in 2nd, 3rd quarter, the defense starts making some headway. And I guess this goes back to what I was saying a little bit earlier in this show, is to say, man, where we've fallen down here is not that there isn't moments. There's moments of brilliance in this game. Well, maybe. I don't know. Actually, very little about this game looked brilliant. It looked like there was moments of brilliance, especially offensively. We put up 500 yards, and Gunner had some amazing plays. The offense looked really dynamic against Tennessee. So maybe, but I mean, I guess there was. I mean, we have to call the run game. The run game in this play is brilliant. And look, you finally got Dillon Bell. Dillon Bell only gets 1 touch in this game. Okay, he had no catches. He had the 1 touch for the 40-something yard run. But look, kudos to Bobo that he finally got Dillon Bell in the game in a position where he did something big and made him look dangerous. That's what this guy should be. He's the jackknife for us, or he's the jack of all possible things. He can make tough catches in traffic. He can make possession catches. He can run the ball out of the backfield. He can do jet sweeps. So finally we get Dylan Bell broke loose and he does a big play for us. So that's great. And you got to give Bobo credit for scheming up the play that Taylor, the freshman, dropped. I mean, that was a great play too. So there are good plays in here. And we had moments of brilliance on offense. I mean, we averaged for the game almost 7 yards a carry in the game. And Chauncey Bowens, I mean, very quietly, we haven't seen a back rip off a 100-yard game in a long time. Chauncey Bowens on less than 20 carries. I think he had like 19 carries and 119 yards, something like. I mean, he looks phenomenal in this game, and a lot of that also involves some good downfield blocking, some good offensive line blocking, some just great scheming, and overall. Here's the funny thing. So here's another thing that went against us. I thought we would control. I told you that we'll make Bama's offense one-dimensional, and the way we'd win this game is we're gonna do what we did in the other games so far this season. We came into this game averaging about 76, 77 plays on offense, giving up about 50 something, and we've been averaging like 34 minutes plus on time of possession, holding the other team to like 24, 25 minutes on time of possession. So I said that I thought we would be successful, that our offense would run effectively, maybe our best game of the year against Alabama, and our defense would take away their run and make them one-dimensional. And those things happened. I said our intangibles, our field goal kicker would be better, and it'd be a close game. But here's where the flip happened. Alabama was able to use their one-dimensional offense to run 77 plays, I think, to our 53. They flipped the script on us. And they had 35 and a half minute time of possession to our 24 and a half minute. So they flipped the script on that. I did say I thought the most likely scenario is both teams would get at or near 400 yards. Neither team would light up the other team a ton on offense. That our offense would be effective and would grind out time of possession, grind out yards and points and enough to win, but probably not like a 550-yard performance. But I thought our defense would also not hold them under 300, but would hold them under their averages too, keep them in the 300-something range. And that's what happened. They had 397 yards. We had 357. And that sounds bad. You'd say, well, the offense didn't get as much. Well, the offense not having more yards was the defense fault. This is the reverse of the complementary football. Our offense averaged more yards per play in this game than any game so far this year. They averaged like 6.7 something yards per play. I don't have the number right in front of me. I should have written it down. But this was our best. So there's a couple ways. I've talked about yardage differential. I've talked about yards per game. I've talked about what the defense is giving up and the offense is doing in time of possession. One thing I hadn't talked about a lot, and a lot of people when they're looking at the stats have started looking less at total yardage in games, but looking at what the offense and the defense does in yard per play, because a lot of times yard per play will tell you more what are those guys really getting done. So in this game, we had our best yard per play average of any game this season, but we only had 53 plays. So I told you we've been averaging 77, 76 plays. So we had 24 less plays on offense than we would have had, or than we've had in other games. So at the way we were averaging, and if we got 76 plays in this game, we would have had 500 yards offense, 515 yards offense if we get 77, 76 plays in this game. So if our defense plays that complementary football, gets them off the field on some of those third downs, then our offense has more chance to have more plays, and we flip the script. If we flip the script back where we get 70 something plays and they get 50, then I think, we get the time of possession and we probably win this game. Because offensively, it's easy to look at Gunner's numbers and say, well, he only threw for 130 yards. Well, he missed his first 4 passes. That's true, and that's why we fell behind a little bit. But there's a few different things involved. That ultimately he completes 65% of his passes on the game. He's only 13 of 20 in this game, but that's the problem. Is he only had 20 throws. We had an appropriate number of runs. We ran for 227 yards, but we didn't have enough plays for him to get the yardage. And of course, he would have had 50 yards on the one catch that got dropped. So that still only gets you to 180, but But my point is what I thought would happen happened, but it happened to us in reverse. Except for our offense was able to run and grind it out, and our defense kept their run down and made them one-dimensional. But our defense could not stop third down, and that's where the whole game came down to. You've heard the stat. I'm sure you saw it in the game. They were 13 of 19 on third down. I think it was the most third downs anybody's ever converted against Kirby Smart team. So on paper, it's not the worst game you ever saw. We gave up 24 points. That's not awful to an elite offensive team or a team with elite players and a team as good as Alabama. Our yard per play average wasn't that bad. We held them under 400 yards. We held them under 24 points. I would like to see better, but in a game of this magnitude, that's how these games often are. So the difference really was that our defense just couldn't consistently get off the field in third down. And you know that. You saw it out there. But they had moments. I mean, they did shut them down the entire third quarter. And, I mean, third and fourth quarter. And, you know, after those first two drives, our defense gets 4 plays, 30 yards, and a punt. Then we give up the field goal. I mean, we give up the fumble deep in our own territory, and the defense holds 4 plays, 5 yards, forces the field goal. Then they get torched on that drive right before the half. So there's the inconsistency, right? But then they come back and they don't look great on the first drive of the third quarter. They give up 50 yards, but they at least stop them, the momentum, and force them to a field goal. And look, that's a hallmark of the Georgia defense too. It's not that they never give up yards or drives, but more often than not, they stop teams and force them into either fourth down decisions, punts, or field goals. And so they forced them in a field goal and they missed it. Okay, then the next drive, 5 plays, 26 yards, and inexplicably, by the way, this one's the one that should have cost Kalen DeBoer the game. He's got a lead, and he goes for it from midfield on fourth down. They had 3rd and 1, and they get stuffed. They gained nothing. They actually lost about a half a yard on 3rd and 1. And I don't know if pride or whatever gets the better of them. They go for it on fourth down, and they actually lose yardage. We stuff them again. We get the ball back. That's the first time we had the ball. The first of 3 times we have the ball with a chance to take a lead. And that's the subsequent play is where Taylor dropped the open touchdown. And again, that should have cost that strange choice when you have a lead on the road in the middle of the third quarter and you go for it for fourth down on your own, at midfield with a lead on the road. Makes no sense. I don't know why you do that. I don't know what the gain is. It's not like there's a guarantee. Like another good reason to go for the fourth down is like when you're at the, like I hate to see anybody think it's a great idea to punt from your opponent's 38-yard line. I think you almost always should go for fourth down there, right? Because your net punt, especially if it goes in the end zone, is probably going to be 15 or 18 yards. And the worst case scenario is you're leaving them in on their side of the field. And if you pick up that first down, when you're at 38 yards, maybe you don't feel confident you can make that field goal, and it's maybe not a smart move to try. But you pick up that first down, and then the next set of downs, chances are you're close enough now to try the field goal. So the risk reward on the fourth down, that's the thing. There ought to be a reasonable risk reward in the fourth down. It's not just do the statistics say that this down and distance you should be able to pick it up. Yeah, okay. Everybody knows that. I mean, I don't think there's any brilliance in understanding that if it's 4th and 1, the statistics say you should be able to pick it up X amount of time. Yeah, think about how many plays gain at least a yard. I mean, on first down, if you gain a yard running up the middle, that's pretty much a fail. But if it's 4th and 1 and you need a yard, then a yard is great. And you're going to get a yard probably 70-80% of the time. So the stats are always going to tell you, hey, you're probably going to pick this up if you go for 4th and inches. Yeah, you're always going to probably pick that up. 75% of all plays gain inches. So, I mean, but what's the reward? What's the value of risking the position on the field? From midfield, you're up by 3. You're Kalen DeBoer. And it's the middle of the third quarter. You go for that 4th down. The reward is you get another set of downs. You're still not in field goal range. You're still 50 yards away from a touchdown if you pick up that 4th and 1 on a short play. So, it's too early in the game to say, well, we burned enough clock to close the game out. No, it's middle of the third quarter. But you're on the road, you all of a sudden have lost the mojo scoring and you're up by 3. You don't get that. There's no way we shouldn't have come out of that with a field goal. That game should have been tied after that decision. Taylor dropped the touchdown pass, and then we have a 0 yard gain after that. I mean, that was on second down, by the way, when Taylor drops the ball. We still had third down, and we run a crap play on third down. And again, it's not even reasonable to go for it because now we're at midfield, and it's like 4th and 8 or 4th and 9 or something. So because we gain maybe 1 yard, we run some crap play and we get nothing. So Alabama's defense, I guess, did a good job, and we get nothing out of that. Kalen DeBoer doesn't pay the price because if Taylor catches the ball, then DeBoer looks like an idiot, okay? And people are going to be questioning why he went for that 4th down. Nobody even talked about why he went for that 4th down because we didn't make anything of it. Never mattered. But it was a weird choice, okay? But but anyway, my point, I was going through the defense, and I was saying, look, after those first 2 drives, the defense goes punt, 5 yards and the short field goal after the fumble, then gives up the touchdown before the half, then gives up yardage but stops them in the field goal that they miss, then stops them on downs at midfield, then makes them go three plays for 0 yards and a punt on the next one, and then 9 plays and a punt on the next one. And then, in the end, the last time Bama had the ball, they ground out the rest of the clock, the last 3 minutes with an 8-play drive. They didn't go very far and they didn't score. But I mean, the defense does, look, there are moments here where you look at it and you say, well, now the defense looks brilliant, right? I mean, and they did stand up big in some moments. So that's what's so frustrating is I don't understand how this team, and I know it's really young, so maybe that's the thing. Maybe they're just so young. Maybe I can't blame the coaches, but I'm tempted to want to say, guys, how did you get burned for the second week in a row? How are you not prepared any better for the second week in a row to start off so poorly? But maybe that's not fair. I don't know. But I do feel like the coaching thinking in the second half, especially regarding that field goal play and just the play calling when we needed 2-for-1s, and there was just a lot of time where the play calling, it just seemed like when it came down to those critical moments, like if we could have picked up that first down after Taylor doesn't catch the ball. Alabama earlier in the game, Williams has the wide open touchdown. He drops, right? But they go on to complete the drive and score a touchdown. And we have the drop, and the next play we go nowhere, and then we end up punting, even though we were handed the ball at midfield, and we're down 3. There's no way we should have not come out of that with at least tying the game with a field goal and getting some positive yards. 3 times you get the ball. 3 times you're at midfield. Twice we got the ball at midfield. The third time we had a drive from our 5 back to midfield, but then we fell apart. Our drive falls apart there, and we had a punt. 3 times we give the ball back. Once on downs deep in their territory, and twice we punt from midfield. And that's 3 times we had the ball where a touchdown wins the game. And so there's nothing satisfying about this. It doesn't make, I don't care anything about look, I don't think Alabama was a better team than us. So there's no moral victory in that we were close, or even if we, that we should have won. I don't feel anything in that. And I just see all these places where we made these mistakes and weird and questionable choices. I don't want to be the guy who's like, Alabama, didn't win this game, we lost it. And that's not really what I'm saying. They did more than enough to win the game. And they certainly out-executed us, which feels particularly bad. It just feels like we made all these little mistakes all over the place. We consistently gave up, if it was 3rd and 10, we gave up 10 yards. We field the punt at our 6 instead of letting it go in the end zone. We call for the fair catch, then we fumble. You could look at it just like the Alabama SEC championship game from 2023. Yet again, we fumble the ball, defense holds it to a field goal instead of a touchdown, but what do we lose by? A field goal. So, you can pick a bunch of different places and say, Taylor catches the touchdown and nobody ever scored again in the game, we should have won 28-24. Yeah, maybe. We should have kicked the field goal and been tied and taken to overtime, and I like our chances in overtime. We're at home and we got the better kicker. That's a reasonable point of view too. We had the ball 3 times in the second half when they scored nothing, when it was our chance to either tie it or take the lead, and we got no points out of those 3 drives. After fighting all the way back from being down 14-0 and being torched to like now our defense is getting stops and 3-and-outs, and you do nothing with it. You get to 21, you get to 24-21, but you can't get the tying points, you can't get the winning points on the game on the board. And most of that is you blew the execution, the key moments, and it just feels like such a contrast when you think about that two ugly plays, okay? When you drove from your 5 out to midfield, and then you go backwards and you have an ugly play and you end up at 4th and 13, you have to punt from midfield. That seems terrible, right? You had a chance to go forward and win this game there. Instead, you end up punting, and you drove off your own 5 already. You choked down momentum. And then the drive when you got down there, you're down at the 8-yard, you're at the Alabama 8-yard line, and you got 4th and inches and you go for it. You're down there and you should have got a field goal. You should have had the touchdown. Look, it shouldn't have come to that. I mean, yeah, they should have busted forward. That play should have gone for 5 yards, or they should have never brought it down to a 4th down play even. Okay. But you get to the 4th down play and you run an ugly, ugly play and you look bad doing it. And it looks like a terrible choice. And when Bama, just a few minutes, a little bit later in the game, they have 3rd and 1. And if they don't get it, they're going to have to punt and give the ball back to us, maybe only with a minute and a half left. But still, you're going to give the ball back to a team when you're only down by 3 or up by 3 on the road, and a touchdown could cost you the game. Instead of making them punt, they come out of the timeout, run a brilliant play, get the easy 1st down, make it look like no big deal, walk in the park, touchdown, and they win. And so this is just painful. And it just feels like our guys didn't execute. They didn't look like deers in the headlights. I don't think they couldn't rise to the moment. They just didn't play well at first. And they played really well in spurts, but they consistently didn't finish. They got to 3rd down. They got to 3rd and long, but then gave up the 3rd downs. The coaches didn't seem to have answers. The players kept making little mistakes. We drive off our 5-yard line, but that stall out at midfield with a chance to take the lead and win the game. We stall out on a drive. We're just not, all the plays that got down to the 8-yard line before the infamous don't take the field goal, the 4th down play, were like 7-yard run, 6-yard run. The worst play in that drive was the one right before that where Gunner picks up officially 2 on a 3-yard when it's 3rd and 3. Every other play had been like 21 yards, 7 yards, 6 yards, 8 yards. We're just knifing through them. And then all of a sudden, we get to a 3rd down and now we look like idiots. And then our 4th down play is embarrassing. And then when Alabama gets a 4th down play, all I'm hearing about on the broadcast, Ryan Grubb's brilliant. He outthought the whole Georgia team, and he did. They didn't put up tons of points, but they were able to get 13 3rd down conversions with almost no running game. They were able to grind clock and have a 35-minute time of possession in the game with almost no run game. And, we got out coached. We got outplayed. We got out coached. We lost a game we should have won at home. And still we had multiple opportunities to win, and we tripped and fell over it. So that's why it feels so bad. Can we come back from this? Now I'm just ranting and raving, going a long time. What's the big picture? I said before the game that losing this game last year, and we lost by a score last year, losing this game last year prevented nothing. We went on to win the SEC championship. We got to the playoff. We didn't do well in the playoff, but that's not because of what happened this game. And it's still true here. Losing this game makes it harder, just like we talked about. According to Austin Mock, I think, at The Athletic, I saw somebody's stats, and a bunch of people have them out there. Maybe the FBI maybe not FBI. That's not what it predicts. But anyway, the predictions and the simulations now say if we'd won this game, we'd had an 83% chance of making the playoffs. Now we have somewhere between a 55 and a 61% chance, I think, depending on which thing you look at. So we're still in the running for the playoffs. We still have a chance to win 10 games, win 9 games. It's probably a little harder to actually play for the SEC championship, but if you're focused on playoff and national championship, that's an argument for another day. Which is better? Ohio State. And again, I talked a lot about Ohio State in comparison and why we went into the history of college football and everything. a little bit last week, and maybe somewhere in the back of my mind, I knew this would come up. I don't know. I mean, clearly we could have lost this game, but I really thought we would win. I thought we had it this time. But I did bring up the Ohio State, and I'm going to bring that up as our best example. I'm going to tell you my hope meter is down, not just because we lost, but for what I said at the beginning. Because right now, while I'm not sure I agree with Seth Emerson's article from The Athletic today that says Georgia's not a very good team, I think we've shown that we can be a really good team in spurts. But unfortunately, where we're weaker than we've been in the past is we're not holding steady when we're not in the really good spurts. We're actually playing poorly. We actually get torched on defense, give up a ton of yards, and go nowhere on offense. We either knife through people like a hot knife through butter, or we look like we don't know how to stay out of our own way trying to run a fourth down play or even a third down play. You know, you think of the Austin P. You think of how we punched it in the end zone so many times this year. You think of McCray getting that ball over and just shoving it in the end zone. You think about how we ran the ball down Tennessee's throat in the third quarter, how we ran for 227 yards in this quarter. You think we're getting a powerful run game going. And then how many times, like the Austin P, that we sit there and we run 8 plays or whatever it is from the goal line, and we never get it in, and we end up getting one of our talented freshman tight end with a torn up ankle and surgery and out for the season. So, and so at some of the most critical moments, we're just not getting it done. And it seems to be a combination of players and coaches and everybody. And I know it's a really young team. So maybe the most optimistic view is to say, look, they're going to keep growing and learning. Somebody said, listening, I think, to the post-game show with Kevin Butler, longtime great Georgia Bulldog, Hall of Fame kicker, NFL Hall of Fame, College Hall of Fame, you name it. I think he was one of the ones who pointed out, look, you don't get better from wins, you get better from losses. I don't know if we get better from this. I'm not going to tell you we're better off because we lost this game. I'm not going to say this is a good thing or a silver lining. I don't feel that way. And while we've lost games in the past, and I thought, because like I said, I saw, look, it was just here and it was just there. Tennessee game, had we lost the Tennessee game, I would have still told you about all the good things I saw. We would have felt terrible about what the defense did, but we would have looked at the two and a half quarters the defense played great. We would have looked at the way the offense played, and we would have looked at a few little things, and we would have said, little thing here, little thing there. You flip the script one way or the other, and it's a totally different game. This game feels different because the little things everywhere you look just kept going against us. Just so many little plays where we made mistakes and where we had questionable coaching and questionable play calling. And again, it just, we have to look at those third downs. The players have to look at it and say, why could they not get pressure? The coaches have to look at it and say, are we dialing up the right thing? Are we matched up the right way? It's unconscionable that we forced them into 8 third downs in their first 2 drives, and we stopped none of them. Okay. You stop the second third down of each of those drives, they probably don't even score. Okay. And if we get more chances with the ball, like I said, 53 plays, we 357 yards, we're averaging 6.75 yards a play in the game. I mean, fantastic. 7 is elite. So anything over 5 or 6 is very productive. 6.75 was like our best of the year. This is the best we've done in a game so far. And so, I mean, it's just, you did everything you want to do here. Yeah, 6.74 yards per play. So we'd averaged 6.42 yards against Marshall, 5.54 against Austin P, 5.77 against Tennessee. So again, you put up 577 or 502 yards against Tennessee, but you had 87 plays. So we put up a yard per play more in this game, but we only had 53 plays. We ran, I mean, that's astounding. What is that? That's 34? No, not 34. 20? Yeah, no, wait. I'm an idiot. All of a sudden, I can't do the math. I'm sitting here thinking, what's the math? Yeah, 34 less plays. We had 34 less plays in this game than Tennessee. We lost our own game. We lost time of possession. We lost the plays. We had the offense to do it. And really, I just keep coming back to those third downs. Like, if you just stop half of those third downs, then who knows what happens as far as scores and them driving or not driving. But we get the ball more and we get more plays. And if we have more plays in this game, then we probably win this game by 10 or 15 points. But those weren't just small things. I mean, when you miss on that many of them, they executed well. We also failed. And I think we failed completely. So I'm not super optimistic. I don't come out of this saying, well, we're going to learn, we're going to grow, we'll be better. My estimation of our playoff, not making the playoff so much, but our chances of what we can do in the playoff are definitely down a notch, maybe more. And so we're going to have to see this team evolve as we keep evaluating and talking about that comparative thing. Are we a playoff team? Yeah, we're probably still a playoff team right now. We're at least on the fringe of it. I mean, we're ranked 12th. The 12th ranked team, if that was playoff seeding or playoff ranking, well, thanks to the group of 5 team or whatever, we're probably the first team out right now, which is probably why our chances show at 50, 55%. Look, other people are going to move in and out. So if we can move back up, then we'll be in a better position. We go out next week, we hammer Kentucky, other teams win or lose, we're going to start moving our way back up in the rankings. We'll be okay. Again, it's going to come down to those big games. We've circled Texas, Ole Miss, who looked really great over the weekend, Georgia Tech, who survived a game that shouldn't have been close, but they were on the road against Wake Forest. So, yeah, my optimism is down a little. I mean, this feels less like the path to a championship. Comparatively speaking, again, there's nobody who blows me away yet, but there are other teams that I think if we can struggle to put away and or put ourselves in a position where it's a coin flip game, a 3-point game like this, and we end up losing at home with every advantage to a team that you were otherwise able to make one-dimensional, a team you were able to shut out for an entire half, and yet you still made enough mistakes that somehow you couldn't build on that and just tie the game, get it to overtime or win it, that's not good. So it feels too far to say it's not a good team, but I think the difference is right now, even in this comparative era we've been talking about, it's not a championship team. It's probably a playoff team, but maybe a charity playoff team, and maybe a team that's I don't know. So I don't feel great about that. So I guess we might break it down in a little more detail. I don't know where we go with the next couple of podcasts. Eventually, we're going to get ready for Kentucky. Kentucky's not a very good team. They're 2-2 in the SEC, and they haven't played. I mean, not in the SEC. They're 2-2. I don't think they've looked very good so far. So we'll dig into that more. I haven't had time to look at them really, honestly, because who cared until now? So, but now it's time to play them. So we're going to have to figure that out. I think we have a little bit more we can unpack, and we can talk a little bit about rankings and perspective and other stuff. I do have my Georgia chip on the shoulder for all of what I just said. I'm sitting here looking at it. It's like we lost a narrow game at home by 3 points to a traditional power nemesis. And we fell 7 ranking spots. And then Penn State, who's never broke through the glass ceiling, has nothing, no top win on their resume ever to show that they could get over the hump and win a top matchup between any other kind of team, not just Ohio State. So they lose again to Oregon, not one of their traditional nemesises, but a team that's just another top team, but that they can't ever beat. They lose in overtime, and they only fall 4 spots, and we fall 7 spots. I mean, what's the justification there? We at least have a win against a top 15 team. Tennessee holds at number 15 again. So they're on the fringe of that playoff discussion. Penn State has a resume of exactly no wins against anybody that matters whatsoever. So they lost yet again at home with everything going for them against the one team they've played that matters. And they lost for the second time in a row. They lost that team in the conference championship last year, and now they turn around and lost again. And they've never proven that in this era of their program, they haven't proven they could beat any team that matters in any game that matters. So why are they only falling 4 spots and we fall 7 spots? That's my chip on the shoulder little thing. We'll dig into that a little bit more. It might have to do with who's where in the rankings. Again, there's still a lot of fluidity in the rankings right now, and maybe it has more to do with who's going up and down. Unfortunately, in some ways, misery loves company, and it's great that 4 teams in the top 10 lost, so we weren't the only ones. And the Penn State thing I just mentioned, there's somebody else to look at and go, look at what they did. But then again, when 4 teams lose in the top 10 and another set of teams just outside the top 10 win, then you have all this volatility and the rankings can get a little crazy. So maybe misery really didn't love company. We will definitely look into that some more tomorrow. Maybe exclusively we'll dig into that, and then we'll start digging into Kentucky on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. But we'll do more rehashing the week that was, look at our grid games, see where the playoff teams and everybody are. I just have a lot less enthusiasm about it right now because I really felt like we were comparing our team and finding weaknesses and strengths and looking ahead to matchups in a playoff scenario where I thought we could be a factor. I'm not saying we're definitely not a factor, but my belief is definitely back a notch. And it's time for the team to step up. And young guys are going to have to make some plays. We're going to have to get more, especially from our defense. Surprisingly, we thought it was the offense that would have to come along a little bit this year. And but like I said, when you look at the numbers in this game, the offense left some plays on the field and they cost themselves. Look, some of those 25 to 30 plays more we should have had in the game, some of that's on the offense, 10 or 15 of them. I mean, if they had sustained drives a little bit more, they would have gotten a few more plays, a few more yards, a few more offensive points. But a lot of the inability to get those plays came from the lack of complementary defense effort. Second half was great. They held Alabama to no points and about 130 yards, kept them under 400 yards overall and 24 points total. In the end, the defense did enough that the offense could have won the game, but neither side of the ball complemented the other. And we left our special teams out there doing basically nothing. At least we didn't get a chance to win the game on a long field goal or take it to overtime and win with a better kicker. So coaches needed to do more. Players needed to do more. Fans and the university couldn't have done any more. Congrats to them. They were fantastic. So maybe there's brighter days and we'll start feeling better if we get out there and start winning again and we see some guys start to emerge, get more experience. And, the best I can say is maybe, oddly enough, the Falcons rarely provide much solace for me for anything, but Michael Penix got benched last week. I mean, he's a rookie. He's a young guy. I mean, he was playing some last year, but comes in as the starter this year for the season. Last week, he's so bad, he gets benched, and doesn't finish the game. And then they go out and they win today, and he has a career day. So when you're young, and our team is young at Georgia, it can be fluid, and you can if you have talent, and if Penix is a guy who has talent, if Penix goes on to be a longtime starter for the Falcons, then you're going to see some of that, and that may not be the last time he's looked bad. It takes a while, and look, Eli Manning and Peyton Manning. Well, not Eli. I meant to say Peyton. Eli always was a little up and down, but Peyton Manning. The great quarterbacks out there, they all have bad days once in a while. But they have more good days than not, right? This team for Georgia is not, they're inconsistent in the game, and they've got to make their floor higher. We cannot have the floor be that the other team can just run up and down the field on you and score at will. It's got to be like they can score, but you make it hard on them. Okay. And then when you get the chance and you dominate. And they're going to have to start figuring out if they can't dominate a little better, they're going to have to create turnovers. Another game with no turnovers. So that's another thing just to throw in there. So they've got to do more and they've got to grow up. And the offense has to be more consistent too, but they're probably ahead of the defense. Talent-wise, there's enough to say. And like I said, the Falcons example maybe shows us, look, maybe there's reason to believe that once they play Kentucky and they keep getting more experience playing against real teams, even Kentucky is a real team compared to Austin Peay or Marshall. Once they play more games like that, then maybe some of the guys. And look, I didn't talk about. We'll get into tomorrow next day. There are a couple guys who, especially in the second half on the defense, I think we started to see a couple players. It's not enough to be like what I was looking for, but there's a couple names we could call out and talk about a few things they did, and I think we will do that. So maybe it's the beginning of hope. I don't know. We need a lot more. But hey, I would still rather be a Bulldog than anybody else. And I know you would too. And I'm still proud of the way my university looked, the way my stadium looked, the way the fan base was, and the way the university supported this game. There's nothing better than being a Georgia Bulldog. So keep that in mind. Better days, I guess, will come ahead. And ultimately, I think we do believe in the coaching staff and the belief that they'll figure this out and they'll get more out of these guys. So better days ahead. Until then, go Dogs.